And then Gates, what have you learned, discovered, whatever word you want to use, from doing your podcast?
Well, I've discovered how much I had no clue about in terms of doing something like that. I was very uneasy doing it because I didn't think I'd be particularly good at it. I was probably right about that. But my guests were all amazing. And what really blew my mind was how many stories that I didn't know about, like people I've known for years that I've seen at conventions and done different things. And it was very cool. Every single person was so different. Like, you have done one, and I mean, we each told each other a joke, and we did different things. It was lovely to have a different kind of hat on, as it were. And I wasn't a journalist. I didn't claim to be a journalist. I wasn't doing investigative, trying to embarrass people or anything. I really was trying to learn about who they were, where they came from, where their grandparents came from, things about them. And you find out like that John Delancey was really John de Clancy, and not so French, which was hilarious. And everybody was amazing on it. John was on it. So I learned how to sound edit, and I really had a great time. And if you check it out, please do. I'm allowed to talk about it. Investigates. Gates McFadden Investigates. Check it out.
Wilson, when are you going to start working out? More seriously.
Right after this.
Serious level. In a world where, in general, and a certain franchise specifically, things are in a better place for the LGBTQ plus community than they were, say, 50 years ago for George Takei, right? How have things changed for the better, and what still needs to change, in your mind?
Hanging out. That's a really hard question to answer right now, mainly because, yes, I cannot sit here and say that things haven't improved in 50 years. We have more rights than we did. I just finished reading a book that I recommend to anybody called The Deviant's War, which is about Frank Kameni's battle with the U.S. government and the beginning of the LGBTQ rights movement here in the United States. And what was so obvious to me is how ingrained and systemic the shame that queer people had to live with and navigate 50 years ago, by the way, which was when I was born. So I can't sit here and deny the fact that my life is better than it was than people who were living 50 years ago. But this moment is wrought. This moment is a difficult one for our community. Over 650 anti-gay and trans bills have been introduced in legislatures across this country this year, most of which affect our young people who are already having a hard time just navigating what it means to be a young person, an adolescent, in general. But then to throw shame into, forcing them to think of who they are as something to be ashamed of, which is why I work with an organization called Glisten, which is a 33-year-old organization that works within the school districts here in the United States to make sure that every school is a safe space for LGBTQ students. We do something called the School Climate Survey every couple of years, and the last one we did was in 2021, and 82% of the students that we asked for that survey said that they felt unsafe at their school, and that was in 2021. So I know we're about to do another school climate survey, and I know, just based on the language that is being used by irresponsible leaders, and this controversy at school board meetings, I know that when we do this survey again, that number 82 is going to go up. So it's why I've decided to take on the chair of the board this year. We are creating a new board for this organization, and we're creating the kind of organization that will allow students to create a climate for their school that they want. We don't go in and dictate to them what kind of school they should have. We give them the tools and empower them to change their school climate themselves with their parents and their supportive allied teachers and administrators. It's an incredibly important organization. If you go onto glisten.org, you can go onto our Navigator app and click on your state, and you can see how your state is doing in terms of LGBTQ youth and schools, and give you some pointers on what you can do locally in your school district and in your state. Again, it's glisten.org. You can go there, find out what you can do personally in your community, and you can also donate on that same website.
Thank you. And now can we get that photo up of Jess? We'll see it on the small screen right in front of you. So Jess, you're an artist and a jewelry designer as well as an actor. Many actors who are also artists say they're extensions of each other, that they're complementary endeavors. And my understanding is you don't feel that.
No, not at all.
Take us through that.
I was hoping that would happen, but no. I have a huge sculpture. I mean, this is a picture of the sculpture I have in person, called the Bee Totem that I built for 12 months full time. The year before I booked booked Splat and Snake. And I shipped it to Canada so that I could work on it in my time off, and not a chance. Like the space that I step into as a visual artist and the way that I use my body and my mind is so different to what I do when I act, and they do not mix. Like I need like a good couple of weeks to like switch into the other mode, which is kind of interesting, I think.
What's the material in this?
So I collected 1,000 dead honeybees from beekeepers after they died, and preserved each one in a sphere of crystal resin. So that's 1,000 honeybees, and then the chain. It's all like fine sterling silver chain.
It reminds me of this piece that's at the Museum of Broadway. Have you heard about this?
No.
It's a piece about Phantom of the Opera, and it uses the crystals from the chandelier for each year that it was open. It's really beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It creates this big shape of the mask.
Wow, cool. Do they use light with it?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You should see it.
Hell yeah. I imagine that would be stunning.
And Jess, if anybody's interested in finding your smaller pieces, because
Yeah.
obviously that's a hard one to get, where can they find it?
Talk to me online. Email me. If you'll have Instagram, you'll find my email on there. Or just search One Jessa in Google. That's my artist moniker. So I mean, as a result of being more mobile and not having a giant studio space with all the equipment and chemical safety gear that I need to make that big one, it's kind of pushed my practice into another direction where I make jewelry with the same materials, but I have a jeweler in Australia who hand casts all the silver, and I love it. I love making it. I love giving it to people. It's so special and so close to my heart, and I think that it creates a really intimate connection between you personally and this insect that supports our existence on this planet. So the larger piece is something that washes over you, and you can experience it in many different ways with your whole body, and the smaller pieces are something to keep close to your heart as a daily reminder. So yeah, that's that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify something, because I said glisten.org, and you probably think that means the word glisten. It's GLSEN.org, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network. GLSEN. Love you too. Glisten.org.
If we're moving on,
We are.
I wanted to say something, sort of a coda about DeForest Kelley that actually reflects, I think, on this moment we are in on strike as a union. Let me explain. you may or may not know that when they had a class action suit against a studio because members of the original series of the show we dare not mention had never gotten their merchandising money for 27 years. And because Mr. Kelly was too much of a gentleman to want to sue the studio, he was rewarded by the studio with not getting paid anything. They paid Mr. Shatner, Mr. Nimoy, and then the other stars got a reduced amount for the royalties that they'd never gotten from merchandising. And he never got paid anything, as I said, because he was too much of a gentleman. My point is merely that sometimes corporations, in this case movie studios in general, need to be pressured to do the right thing and to share the wealth. And as much as we'd all like to be gentlemen in this dispute, we have to stand firm so that we get a right. We were operating under a residuals agreement that is 33 years old before streaming platforms were ever invented. So we just want some transparency and some fairness. So if that's why we're here, that's why we really appreciate all of you coming anyway, even though we can't talk about what we normally talk about, because by doing so, you are supporting us in our fight, and you're also supporting a company like Creation Entertainment, which is not attached to a studio. I mean, we're not punishing the wrong people by canceling an event like this, but we're all mindful of why this is a different convention, because we're engaged in a fight, and you guys are helping us, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
If you look on all of their social media, each one of them has photos of them picketing. I've seen photos of all of you, right? So let's open it up to questions. Let's start on our left, guys.
First, I'd just say thank you, Bob, for just saying what you said. The first thing I was actually planning on saying myself was I was going to thread the needle on this question very carefully, because I feel like it's not just up to people who are in the union to be able to support organized labor, but it's all of our jobs to support organized labor, and I wanted to make sure that I did my part. To that end, I promise you this is not going to cross any lines, even though it'll seem like it briefly in a minute. I know that, Jess, you had the opportunity recently to participate in a project that was on television or streaming, where you got to participate in a musical that some of us may have seen recently.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Not at all.
Treading very carefully here.
Very carefully, because the actual question is for the whole panel, because I know we have so much talent up here. For those that have had the opportunity to go into music or to sing in various mediums, be that on theater, in film, in television, if you could just kind of give us a little bit of background of what that experience is like, different from theater, and if you speak to it from the theater perspective, then any references to television or movies is incidental, because we're talking about theater.
I'm out. I think you said, how do you guys like singing?
Is that the upsweep? I mean, the experience that you mentioned that I have no idea what you're talking about, that really opened my eyes to how much I wanted to do more of that. I was very new to singing in any kind of organized way, and since then I've joined a choir, which I would recommend to anyone who hasn't done before. Oh my god, the act of singing in a unison with other people, it really is a cleansing act. It makes you really realize why we're all here together. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm singing lots more now. I don't know if it sounds any good, but it's it feels good. Thank you.
Listen, you want to jump in on too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, most of my singing has taken place in theater. I think the thing that people don't realize is when you're doing a Broadway show for 8 shows a week, that the way you have to live your daily life changes, so that you are at your physical peak by 8 o'clock. So that means, you know, in many ways you live your life a bit like an athlete, so that you're eating and exercising and resting at specific points of the day, so that by 8 o'clock, you are at your peak. The problem is that when you're done at 11, you're full of all of this energy, and it takes forever to kind of wind down. But I remember just kind of, I had a friend who was in the Olympics, and I was telling him about what my day was like, and he was like, oh yeah, that's how we live when we're competing, right? So it's, when you're doing something as physical as singing or dancing on a stage, it really is about creating a day that allows you to be at your best for that audience in that specific moment.
I would also love to know what it's like when you have to do 2 shows in a day. Right? How do you get that energy up twice?
I think, in many ways that those days can be easy just because of the adrenaline, but at the end of those days, you're exhausted. The worst is those holiday weekends where there were weeks when you did 13 shows in a row without a break, which meant you would do, in our case, Tuesday night, 2 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday, then you do the Monday, and then you do the rest of Tuesday, 2 more on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 Saturday, and 1 Sunday, and then you were done. And that was like Christmas and Thanksgiving.
It's brutal. It's brutal even if you're doing a show and you're not singing in the show. When I did a show called Cloud 9 by Carol Churchill in New York, it's a great play, by the way. We did that many shows, but then on Friday nights, which was a really popular night for it, we would do 2 back-to-back shows. So you'd get off stage, and I had the lead, and I had 3 different characters, and even Tommy Toon did the curtain call was like a whole dance number. It was unbelievable. And we would just finish it, the curtain would close, and they'd say half hour to get ready for the next show. And it was like you had to have any sustenance you could, or anything, you had half an hour for the next show. And sometimes what was interesting is you'd go, I'm too tired, I can't do it. And as soon as you just step on the stage, that first line, right? I mean, this is what happens to everybody. Even if you're tired, if you're just present, it's amazing it could turn out to be your best show. You think it's going to be your worst. But in terms of singing, I think what's amazing to me is I sang a ton when I was little, when I was in a choir, and then I blew out my cords in a rock thing, and I didn't sing for years then, and I missed it terribly. But when I did for the Cruz, I said, you know what, I'm just going to try to sing again. I'm sure my voice is very mediocre, but I'm just going to do it. And I did a one-woman show that I started to work on. What I discovered was how intimate, it's so personal when it comes. There's nothing more powerful than this voice that just comes from inside us. It's like one of the strongest communications we can do, because it's just like, it's sound, we don't have to have language even. And it really puts you right in touch with your emotions. It's extraordinary. And I realized how much I had missed that in my life. So I was very grateful to have a little return to it.
I love to sing, I just find most people don't like to listen.
A couple of weeks ago, I met a world-class opera tenor named Arturo Chacon Cruz. He's performed in all major opera companies around the world. Sorry?
Sing for us.
Oh, no, that's not why I brought this up. In fact, he would not want me to. No, he's a glorious singer. I heard him sing. I'm going to go see him play Il Trovatore, to play the lead in that at the San Francisco Opera in about 3 weeks. But he said to me when I was training, he said, when I was training, I watched you on Star Trek, La Donna Mobile. I said, I'm so sorry. He said, no, you were good.